Hey, what's up everyone? Today I'll be telling you about the strange and controversial case of Sherri Papini. Sherri Papini was kidnapped and brutally tortured for 3 weeks before she was found alive on the side of a highway over 100 miles from her home. But is that what really happened? Before I get into the story, please hit the thumbs up button. It helps the video get pushed out more. But yeah, let's get into it. So in 2016, 34-year-old Sherri Papini had what seemed to be a picture-perfect life. She was very pretty. She was married to her middle school sweetheart, Keith Papini. It hadn't been a straight shot to marriage though. Keith and Sherri had broken up a few times before they got married. And in 2006, Sherri actually married another man, David Dreyfus. But that marriage ended before a year, and Sherri was back living with Keith before that divorce was even finalized. Sherri and Keith seemed really in love, one of those annoying couples actually. Since they'd known each other since middle school, they loved rereading old love letters that they had sent to each other and that kind of stuff.
I remembered that all these years ago, I kept her notes that she wrote me. And I dug them up and I handed her a box, and of course it was like all our little notes back and forth.
Soon enough, Keith would find himself on one knee, asking for Sherri's hand in marriage.
I was just head over heels for her, and I knew I wanted to marry this girl.
The striking couple tie the knot in 2009. They look like a fairy tale couple. She like a princess, he like a prince. Their photos together seem as if they're ripped from the pages of a glossy magazine.
They do just very sweet things for one another, and just kind of things that you read out of a novel or see on TV.
And by 2016, they had 2 young children, 4-year-old Tyler and 2-year-old Violet. They lived in Mountain Gate, California, which is a very small but very beautiful town in Northern California. They actually lived in the home where Keith grew up. Sherri was a full-time mom. She didn't work, she was just all about her kids, and her friends even called her a super mom. And
she wakes up in the morning, has her kids dressed, their meals planned out for them, and their activities for the day. And not just that, she's just a super wife. Like when she makes a pie, she doesn't just make a pie, she makes it look gorgeous.
And says she was the mom that they all wanted to be. Sherri loved handcrafting items and selling them on her Etsy store and posting on her Pinterest. On November 2nd of 2016, Keith left for work at Best Buy in the morning, and the kids were at daycare, so it was Sherri's day to herself. At 11 a.m., Sherri texted Keith and asked if he would be home for lunch. He said no. At 4:30 that afternoon, Keith comes home.
I opened the door expecting my son comes 100 miles an hour right at me, and then usually Violet right behind him. We do what we call, our family snuggles.
But no one's there. It looked like Sherri had been wrapping a present for him, an American flag pillow to be exact. So he tries not to panic. He uses the Find Friends app on his iPhone to track Sherri's phone, and it shows she is a mile away where the mailbox is located. So he hops in the car and goes there. There's no Sherri, but her phone is kind of neatly placed on the floor, and the headphones are in there, and some of her blonde hair's in the headphones, like it's been ripped out. So Keith takes a picture of the phone and then calls 911.
Hello, can I help you?
Hello? Yeah, I just got home from work, and my wife wasn't there, which is unusual, and my kids should have been there by now from daycare. So I was like, oh, maybe she went on a walk. I couldn't find her, so I called the daycare to see what time she picked up the kids. The kids were never picked up. So I got freaked out, so I hit the Find My iPhone app thing, and it said that it showed her phone at our end of our driveway. We don't have really good service.
Okay.
Not the end of our driveway, but the end of our street. But I just drove down there, and I saw her phone with her headphones because she started running again, and I found her phone, and it's got hair ripped out of it, in the headphones. So I'm totally freaking out, thinking somebody grabbed her.
Okay, what's your address?
Reading.
Okay, what's your last name?
Yes. Papini, P-A-P-I-N-I.
And your first name?
Keith.
K-E-I-T-H?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go pick up your children?
No, I'm going to call my mom and have her do it.
Okay. What's your wife's name?
I'm going to, like, knock on every door. Sherri. Sherri.
And same last name?
Yes.
She white female?
Yes.
What's her date of birth?
It is June 11th, 1982.
Is her vehicle there, or does she not have a vehicle?
She has a vehicle at the house.
Okay, the vehicle is at the house?
She's running.
How? Okay.
Yes, I'm in it right now driving, and I took a picture of her phone on the ground before I picked it up.
Okay, how tall is she?
5'3", 5'4".
How much does she weigh?
100 pounds.
Eye color?
Like a bluish blue.
Okay, hair color?
Blonde.
Do you know what she was wearing? Is there
No
something
idea.
she always wears?
I'm assuming she went running, so
Okay,
probably
is there-
running athletic type clothes.
Okay, there's not an outfit she always wears or anything like that. Does she run with a dog or by herself?
By herself.
Okay. What time were the
She
kids
just started running again, and we live in a... No,
When's the
I'm
last
sorry,
time?
I'm Superman right
When's the last time you heard from her?
now. She sent me a text asking me if I was coming home for lunch.
What time was
She's got a
that?
whole bunch of mixed... well, give me 1 second. She sent me a text at 10:47 asking me if I was coming home from lunch from work. And I said, sorry, long day. And that was the last. Never spoke to her on the phone, never any other contact.
Okay, and what time are the kids supposed to be picked up?
Way before 5:30, she usually goes to like 4:45.
Okay.
4:30, 4:45.
Okay, are you headed back to the house, or where are you at right now?
I'm at the end of the driveway where I'm at the Old Oregon Trail and Sunrise where they meet, because that's right where I found her phone on the ground. Telling me that something happened to her is the way I'm looking at it. There's like, then there was hair like in the headphones, like it got ripped off, or like the grab.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know you're
okay.
trying to keep me calm, obviously.
Yeah. What kind of vehicle are you in?
I'm in a black Kia Optima. Oh my God.
Okay.
And we live down kind of a sketchy street, so I definitely, I don't know if I'm allowed to knock on everybody's door, but I will if I'm allowed to do that.
Well, let's just have the officers contact you so they can start, processing everything, figure out what's going on, okay? And I understand you're freaking out a little bit. We want to make sure we get your kids, make sure they're okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna call my mom and have her.
Yeah, they've been stuck at this. Your phone number.
Yes. Do you want me to wait right here for somebody, or?
If you want to head back to your residence so they can contact you there, and in case she does return.
Okay.
Okay. We'll have them contact you at your residence. Call us back if anything changes, all right?
All right, so they're going to call me the number you just took down, the 355?
They'll probably call you when they're on their way, and they're going to come out in person.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
So it turned out that the kids were safe at daycare, but there was still no Sherri. So police, locals, and even the FBI set out on a huge search for her. They put out, flyers everywhere. It was all over the media. It was a national story. On November 7th, Keith takes a polygraph test, which lasts for hours and is really grueling, but he passes it just fine. He also hands over his phone and Sherri's phone and their computers to the police. Keith started giving some interviews to the media, pleading for Sherri's safe return.
I'm coming, honey. I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can. And I love you.
He started a GoFundMe to hire private investigators and whatever else would be needed to help search for Sherri. And the GoFundMe quickly raised almost $50,000. A wealthy entrepreneur who was touched after seeing Sherri's story on the news came to Keith and offered a $50,000 reverse ransom in order for Sherri's safe return. So the ransom produced no results. Sherri was still missing.
I'm just wondering about her health. Are they feeding her? You know, is she hot? Is she cold? I mean, just little horrible things that I would go through. I would thought about that. I thought about her being there, screaming my name, and that I wasn't there, and that really, you know, that really got to me.
And the kids, at least the 4-year-old, was old enough to understand that something was wrong, so Keith actually had to tell his 4-year-old son that Sherri was missing.
I told him I had something important to tell him, and he jumped he jumped up on the couch with me, and he knew something was up. And he said, "Dad, you can tell me anything." For a little 4-year-old to say that, I wasn't prepared for that, so I just said, "Son, you know, Mommy went running, and she didn't come home, and we're all looking for her right now." We just held each other, and I said, he said, "Are you looking for her?" And I said, "Everybody in the whole world is looking for her right now." And I said, "We're gonna find her, and we're gonna get her back."
Keith also joined in on the searches for Sherri, and he talked about how hard it was and how he felt like at times
There was a moment where we were heading back after we, did a few mile search, and we look up and we start to see some birds circling. And then I started walking, and I just went to my knees, and I thought, am I really hiking out here to look for my wife? And do I even want to? I don't want to find her right now, but I do want to find her. One of my good friends came over and just, hugged me and let me cry on his shoulder for a little bit, and it was a very sad and a very emotional and angry moment for me, and I'm very glad they were with me to kind of pick me up. And
But on Thanksgiving morning at about 4 a.m., Sherri was seen on a church's surveillance camera in Yolo, California, which is about 150 miles from her house. You can't tell much from the surveillance, but you can see her running. She bangs on the church's doors and then on the doors of a house before she runs up to the highway to flag someone down. A woman who was driving with her daughter actually saw Sherri.
I was in the right-hand lane, and I saw a woman frantically waving what looked like a shirt, trying to flag somebody down. She had like a wide-eyed, panicked kind of look. I was startled to see her. It was dark, and she pretty much just came out of nowhere. If I had swerved to the right at least a little bit, I would have hit her with my car. I figured if she was willing to risk being hit by a car trying to get somebody's attention, that she must really need some help. I pulled off and I dialed 911.
Attention Station 8, unknown medical problem. It's going to be northbound I-5, female needs medical attention. She is heavily battered. It's going to be some sort of an assault.
An ambulance came, and after 23 days, Sherri Papini was finally rescued. She had to go to the hospital though because she was not in very good shape. She had bruises all over her, both old and new. She had dried blood. Her hair was chopped off to like her shoulder length. She was emaciated at about 84 pounds. She had a chain around her waist that connected to her wrist, and she had zip ties and hose locks around her ankles. And she had been branded on her right arm, not with a symbol, but with some sort of message, but no one could actually tell what it said. So Keith rushes up to Yolo to see Sherri in the hospital, but when he gets there, an officer stops him and tells him that Sherri is not looking the way he is used to seeing her, and he should prepare himself before going in.
I just wanted to see her, so I just ran past everybody, and I, throw open the curtain, and she was there in a bed, in her poor face. And I just hugged her, I just held her. I felt like I hugged her for like 20 minutes. I was so happy that she was there, and I was just kissing her all over, and then I got like nauseated just looking at her.
Sherri was in shock though, so she really couldn't tell police anything. And despite all these injuries, she left the hospital that same day and checked into a hotel with her husband. And it wouldn't be until 5 days later that she could actually tell police what happened. Sherri said that she couldn't remember a lot of what happened, but she remembered she had been jogging in a trail near her house when two Hispanic women pulled up in a dark SUV. They put a bag over Sherri's head and threw her in the vehicle, and they took her to some kind of cell. While she was there, Sherri was chained up the whole time, and she was just tortured by these women. They beat her, they starved her, they branded her, they cut off her hair. She said that the women were speaking Spanish most of the time, so she really couldn't understand a lot of what was going on. She said that while she was being held, she missed her kids so much that
like she was tucking in her kids, and she told me one time she took some piece of cloth and rolled it up like it was violet. She would rock it. She's so strong.
She said that she avoided looking at the women so that they wouldn't beat her, and that their faces were covered most of the times, and Sherri's face was also covered most of the time. So she was only able to give the police a very vague description of the two women. Said that the day she was let go, she heard the two women arguing, and then she heard a gunshot, and then one of the women comes back, puts a bag over her head, and then takes her to that highway and just drops her off. She says that she has trouble even standing up because her legs hurt so bad and she has an injury on her toe.
The Shasta County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Unit continues to dedicate all of its resources to identifying and apprehending those individuals who are responsible for the abduction of Sherri Papini. Over the last 2 days, major crime detectives have interviewed Sherri at an undisclosed location. The interviews were very intense for both the investigators and for Sherri, due to her having to relive this traumatic event. She was cooperative and courageous during the interviews. There's still a lot of unknowns about her assailants. However, we commend Sherri for her efforts to sit down with our detectives and provide a statement.
So Sherri was really excited to be back home with her kids and her husband, obviously.
You know what, buddy? I found Mom. And he got the biggest grin, and he started like, where is she? And he just sprinted 100 miles an hour. I was like, go slow, go slow. And he hugged her, and my wife, obviously very emotional, and started crying, and she said, I'm so happy. And my son, of course, is like, you don't cry when you're happy? And my wife said, when you're this happy, you cry. She picked her up, and then again, just snuggles and kisses. My son jumped in my arms, we were hugging, and then of course we all went to the ground for a big family hug.
But the public had a lot of questions. After all, it's kind of unusual that she says two women kidnapped her. Most kidnappers are men, and it's also unusual that victims are released. People also found inconsistencies in Sherri's story. Like, she said that her foot was injured, but there was no injury there. The police also said that the DNA of a male and a female were found on Sherri when she was found. The DNA did not match Sherri or Keith or anyone in the FBI database, but it also didn't match with Sherri's story that two women had kidnapped her. A year after Sherri was found, police released some search warrants to the media. And the search warrant showed that Sherri had been having a texting relationship with a man from Michigan for months, and that they had planned to meet up shortly before Sherri disappeared. It said that Sherri had the man's phone number saved in her phone under a woman's name. They also kind of suggested that Sherri had done this in the past with other men. Saved their numbers as women's names on her phone. But police said that the Michigan man was cleared. And
you've got to ask yourself, why are the investigators releasing this information? Why are they telling the public that she was involved in some texting relationship before this happened? Why are they admitting that there was male DNA found when she said there were only two women? That doesn't mean that they don't believe that she was abducted. It doesn't mean that they don't believe her story, but it does mean that they think there may be more to the story. And the more details they can get out, potentially the better the tips that they can get. So I think it's really important to read between the lines here in terms of what they're saying, to say to yourself, we've got the information, but we think there's more here.
So are they trying to put pressure on her?
I don't know if it's pressure on her or just getting more information out there, but it's clear they don't think that they have the entire story from her.
And they're cooperating, though.
Sherri in particular cooperating. Keith totally been cleared. So that's what makes this such a mystery.
What? You mean the branding on the shoulder?
Right, the branding on the shoulder. You say, how could someone wouldn't do that to themselves, etc., right? So many mysteries here.
Local sources say that the sheriff's department is actually split. Half the sheriff's department believes Sherri's story, and the other half believes it's some kind of hoax, but they just don't have enough evidence to prove it. A 2003 blog post surfaced, and it was posted under Sherri Graeff, which is Sherri's maiden name, and her hometown. And the blog post was complaining about Latinos and said that Latinos were jealous of her because she was proud of her white heritage and was drug and disease free. She also had a section on her Pinterest called Cultural Differences, where she posted anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim memes. There's also the $50,000 that the Papinis got from their GoFundMe. They say that it was used for Sherri's recovery, both mental and physical, but that money has actually never been accounted for. A newspaper called the Sacramento Bee published some things about Sherri's past.
More than a decade before Sherri Papini claimed she was abducted while out jogging, police reports obtained by the Sacramento Bee indicate that her mother called the Shasta County Sheriff's Office asking for help with her then 21-year-old daughter, saying Papini was harming herself but was blaming her mother for her injuries. The reports also contain complaints of a burglary, taking unauthorized money from a checking account and kicking down a family member's back door. These reports all name Papini as an alleged suspect, but do not mention anything about an arrest.
After the Sacramento Bee published this article, the Papinis released a statement. Sherri Papini and her family are the very recent victims of an extremely violent crime that has painfully and dramatically changed the course of their lives forever. It's shameful that media outlets would intentionally exploit Sherri and Keith Papini and their young children's trauma for the sole purpose of clickbait and selling papers. And the statement accused the newspaper of victim blaming. And for everyone who doubts Sherri's story, there's others who believe it. The area where Sherri was found, and actually even a little bit where she lived, was known as the Emerald Triangle. That's where there are a lot of legal Mary Jane farms and other drugs, and just a lot of shady, dangerous stuff happening there. There's a lot of missing people, a lot of murdered people. You can watch Murder Mountain on Netflix if you want to know more about all that.
This grower says it's like the Wild West.
I've been kidnapped, kicked down a flight of stairs, hunted ruthlessly through town.
Soon I come across pot growers willing to talk as long as we don't name them.
Is it dangerous?
Yes, if you're not a local.
And do you know people who've gone missing or have been murdered in this area?
I know multiple people.
I choose not to answer that question.
So a lot of people actually believe that Sherri could have been the victim of human trafficking.
Well, the Interstate 5 corridor, especially along that area, is a high sex trafficking corridor. A lot of young ladies and some boys also go missing from that area, and I believe it can be attributed to the sex trafficking trade. I have worked that area for quite some time, and we know there's a large influx of Mexican cartel and sex trade.
In those cases, what usually happens? Do they hold the person for 3 weeks, or do they make this horrific trade and move on? Why would they have held her for 3 weeks and then dumped her?
Well, this whole story doesn't make sense. My suspicion is that once she was abducted, she became such a high-profile face that it would have put them in jeopardy and would have been a liability to her captors to actually put her out on the street to work. And I believe or suspect that that is why she was so badly beaten. These people don't like to lose money. They try to make money every single way they can. And once she became a liability, I believe they didn't know what to do with her, and the beatings and the hair cuttings and that type of actions began and continued throughout the duration of her being held captive.
The woman who saw Sherri on the side of the road saw the terror in her eyes and doesn't believe that Sherri's making the story up. Sherri's friends say that Sherri would never have done something like this. Her husband said that she would never leave him, and she definitely wouldn't leave her kids. These days, Sherri lives in fear of people and the media. After everything happened, random people would take pictures of her while she was out, and people would harass her about what happened to her. Sherri lives as a recluse. Her neighbors say that they see Keith and the kids sometimes, but Sherri is rarely seen out, which is incredibly sad if she really was kidnapped. I can't imagine going through all that, then being rescued, and then coming back and no one believes you.
But I really don't know what to think of this story, so I want to know what you think in the comments. So let me know, do you believe Sherri that she was really kidnapped, and why? Or do you think that this was a hoax? Alright, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.